The success story, the success story today is about an H-1B transfer that had to be done in a week. The beneficiary of this tech firm got laid off by one of the big tech firms. Unfortunate, his grace period was running right up to that deadline. Found a new job, and the new job, it's another tech company, was willing to sponsor. If it was successful, he gets a new job, he can start working, he gets a new H-1B. If it fails, he leaves the country. Any new offers, he might have to pay that 100,000 fee. This just happened the last month. It's a very sensitive time, but we only had a week. And what's worse was we had zero control over all the factors affecting this case. We didn't have the full file from the client's previous H-1B filing. How do we do a transfer if we didn't have everything in the past? We did eventually get it, but it was too late, right? We only had a week. On day one, we wanted it, but we didn't have the time. So we didn't have control over what was previously filed about this individual. The second thing we didn't have control over what position this individual was hired to do. The HR recruiting already ended, the offer already got sent. This position title did not match his previous role at the other tech firm. Luckily, the US company, the new company, was able to be very cooperative. We are their corporate counsel, so we had all the other case filings for previous clients. So we were able to pull everything over. We had what the client applicant was able to give us, and we worked very closely with this individual applicant to be able to prove this case. But the secret sauce to winning this case within 1 week, filing the H-1B transfer, we got no request for evidence, and the case was immediately approved, was having a business developer join in on the case. And so I'm actually pulling in this business developer that pretty much saved the day, worked on this case for a whole week straight with the rest of the legal team. John, why don't you come over? This is his first time on live, so he's a little nervous, okay? But what's really important was that every lawyer knows the law. Here's the H-1B requirements. You need to prove the job duty is complex. You need to prove that this position typically needs this position and this education. We know the law, but it's the facts that USCIS oftentimes challenge. But what do you do when you don't have the facts? What do you do when you can't control the facts? We didn't have the previous file. We didn't have control over what the company was offering the position, right? He was basically a sales in the previous company, and now he's doing R&D. He's a tech role, but still, the core description at different jobs was very different, right? And so lawyers can only do so much. We depend on the clients. But in this case, the client can only do so much because the previous law firm filed the case. He doesn't have more. They're like, well, this is what I have, right? I can't lie and bend the truth. So what can you do? At our firm, the business developer's role is to analyze a company and analyze their business model. So we are the corporate counsel for the new company, and we did a lot of the immigration cases for the L1As, L1Bs, other H-1Bs, EB-2s for all the other employees. So we have a lot of information that we can pull from to make the argument that the company needs this position. And this is where it was so special. We actually did other immigration cases for the previous firm that fired the guy. We actually had other information about that company. And so we were able to piece together this individual's role in the business plan and his background that matches that role and how that carries over to this role. And we did that within 1 week. John was able to work with the rest of the legal team, put everything together. We were able to file it and win the case without request for evidence. What do you think was the hardest part about this case?
When we file a case, we have to understand that the officer doesn't have the big picture that we have.
Yeah.
So when they see the case, it's their first time. So a lot of times we assume that they know everything already. And so this time we have knowledge of both companies, we have knowledge of this employee and everything they do, but we can't assume that the officer knows. So we have to write very concisely, but comprehensively everything about these two companies so that the officer will understand what we're trying to do.
Typically, what would you say, how long do we spend on an H-1B case typically?
Yeah, we spend a long time starting from consultation strategy sessions. So a few months before we actually start writing the case. If we're only talking about case preparation, it could be about a whole month because We're going to wait for all the documents, and then we're going to decide if all the documents match with everything we planned, and then start out on a strategic writing based on the documents.
When you were going through, the previous company information, the new company information, what did you find was like some of the hardest part in going from a sales role to an R&D role?
Right.
That's a hard argument to make.
Yeah. So previously I talked about big picture for the company. That's something for the officer to understand. But also you want the officer to understand this person, this employee as an individual. So what we try to do is to do something like an NIW, but opposite of what NIW asks. So in NIW, you want somebody to prove that they have this great proposed endeavor that's beyond their employer. We also need to prove in H-1B that this person has a great proposed endeavor that's within this employer. And why we have to do that, it's not required by law. But we do that just for the officer to understand psychologically where he fits in this company. And if it's something exciting, because to the officer, it's just anybody. Somebody with a computer degree just happens to be working in the US. They might not like that. But if it's somebody who is so capable and is able to bring in all these skill sets for some very exciting projects that belongs to this employer, the officer wants to see these very exciting projects succeed. And so that's something very hard for us to do because we have to show everything very concisely. And so we pulled in all the way from his education to what he did in the previous job, and then how he can translate those previous job to this new R&D position. And then we have to find commonalities between sales engineering and R&D engineering. And there are a lot of commonalities, but we do have to point the interesting facts to the officer instead of saying, here is everything in a board.
Yeah, I love that. Yep. Go above and beyond, because to the officer, this H-1B, you don't know what kind of prejudice the officer might have. Is this applicant really just pushing down American wages? Is this H-1B stealing American jobs? Is this H-1B applicant just another computer software? All these people got laid off. A lot of Americans don't even have this great job. Why should we give it to this person? Really show that this company needs this individual. That's why this company is willing to go to bat and go above and beyond for this individual, and that they will make this company better and all the other employees and the staff and the team better, and they fulfill all the requirements. Thank you. Good job. All right.